So we are making sauerkraut. All right, so the things you are going to need to make sauerkraut is really quite simple. You need a kitchen scale, a bowl, salt, cabbage, a jar, something to press the cabbage down into the jar with, cutting board, knife. That's it. Real simple. Almost everybody has all this stuff already. So first, what you're gonna start out doing is you're gonna peel the first couple of layers of your cabbage off, just because they're not really the best looking. Sometimes they're a little rough looking. But you want to save one leaf, and you're gonna use that to kind of go on top of all your shredded cabbage in the jar. All right, quarter your cabbage. And then, so if you look at this piece right here, you see that it has like a core. You're gonna wanna cut the core out. So what you're gonna do from here is you are going to cut your cabbage very thin. So I'm gonna move these out of the way just so you can see. You want it in shreds. Normally, if you have a food processor, you could use your slicing attachment for your food processor, not your shredding one. You do want it sliced thin though. So I'm gonna slice as thinly as I can get it. Word of the wise, if you don't have a food processor, get one. If you're missing the attachment, go buy a new one. Because now my hand is hurting and it's cramping, and then I have pieces like this, and then I have pieces like this. So this is what makes this sauerkraut recipe so easy. It is done by weight. You want 2% of your overall weight to be salt. So in that case, the first thing we are going to need to do is figure out how much our decently cut cabbage is. Okay, so we have 1,350 grams of cabbage on the dot. See, we want 27 grams of salt in here. 25, 26, 27 grams of salt. All right, guys, so I did switch to a bigger bowl because the next part I was definitely gonna make a mess with if I didn't. So now that you have your cabbage and your weighed cabbage and salt in the bowl, the next thing you want to do is you want to massage the salt into your cabbage. This process, just in case your hands weren't already hurting enough from chopping up the cabbage yourself, will take about 5 to 10 minutes, depending on how much you massage. You want your cabbage to be a little more flimsy and floppy than it was before, and pieces have started to become opaque. You're starting to see some liquid pull up in the bottom of your bowl. You want it to be very wet. So the point of this process is to release the liquids, as much of the liquid as you can from the cabbage. But this is when you want to transfer your cabbage into your mason jar. So if you see the water starting to pull up at the bottom of the bowl, some of the cabbage is starting to go opaque. And this is the time when you want to transfer your cabbage to your mason jar. So you would just cram all your cabbage into the mason jar. My 1 head of cabbage made about 1.5 jars. You do want a little bit of breathing space in your jars, but you want to press down, use something to press down on your cabbage so that it is completely underneath all the liquid. And you get as much of the air bubbles out of where you're putting them in as possible. So just make sure all the cabbage is pressed firmly under the water. And then this is where the leaf comes in. So it helps hold the cabbage underneath the water and helps keep air from getting to your sauerkraut. You are going to lightly put your lids on. Not even hand tight, I mean just until they stop moving like that. And then you are going to set these aside to ferment from anywhere from 4 days to 2 weeks. It kind of depends on your preference and how strong you want your sauerkraut to be. The important thing is as this ferments, it's going to release gases. So every single day, you need to release the lid and burp it, unless you have like a burping lid. Like if you make a lot of wines and stuff, you might have a lid that goes on these jars that is made to do it, and then it will release the gases itself. I don't have one of those. This is the first time I've ever made sauerkraut, so we're gonna see how this turns out. The sauerkraut did turn out fine. We vented it every day, just open the lid, put it right back on, just to make sure it didn't get too pressurized. After about a week and a half, I did let it go past Friday. It was probably about a week and a half that I finally took it and put it in the fridge. And now we have made ribbons out of it. So once you test it and it gets point of fermentation that you like, you just seal it back up and stick it in the fridge. And then it's good for a few months after that. We have made Reubens, which are my favorite thing to eat sauerkraut with. You do rye bread of your choice and a layer of Thousand Island dressing. Then you do corned beef or pastrami, your sauerkraut, and some Swiss cheese. And then you just make it like a grilled cheese. So we're gonna try it. That's probably the best Reuben I've ever had. No cap. Because I had to hand cut the cabbage myself, it's got more of a crunch to it than store-bought sauerkraut. Store-bought sauerkraut doesn't really have any texture to it. So I kind of like this. It's also not as potent as store-bought sauerkraut, which you can leave yours to ferment longer than I did. Hopefully you test this out and let me know how it goes down in the comments. Y'all have a great night.